We have the secondary citizen to Simone Biles, that is Jordan Childs. Time Magazine's telling us that this isn't really the Women of the Year. These are the secondary citizens of the Women of the Year. At least.
The controversy around Time Magazine's Women of the Year. Time Magazine has done it again, and this time, the outrage is palpable. For those of you who follow women's basketball, you know Caitlin Clark has been absolutely dominating the scene. Record-breaking stats, the highest viewership numbers, and making history as one of the most famous women's basketball players in the world right now. She's single-handedly brought women's basketball into the mainstream, yet somehow she didn't even make it as a nominee for Women of the Year. But guess who did? A'ja Wilson and Jordan Childs.
Where I'm struggling. It's moments where no matter how hard you work, it still feels like you're not getting the recognition. It still feels like somebody's got to say something to say. I needed them to understand that they help me in more ways than they'll ever know. It's hard showing up every day and wearing this crown. It's heavy. It gets extremely heavy. But at the same time, I'm going to fix it, make sure it's straight, and I'm going to go ahead and do my...
Both are incredible athletes, but this feels like a serious oversight. How can Caitlin Clark, a player whose impact is undeniable, get skipped over by Time Magazine? A'ja Wilson's struggle. A'ja Wilson, in her own right, has had an impressive career and is a superstar in the WNBA. But to put it simply, she's not the player revolutionizing the sport the way Caitlin Clark is. A'ja has her struggles, and she's very open about them, expressing how difficult it can be to show up every day and bear the weight of expectations. She even spoke about how hard it is to wear the crown of being...
Caitlin Clark did not make the cut. Folks, don't overreact. Don't get angry. Don't get frustrated. Don't be surprised. I don't think anybody should be surprised by this. And this isn't A'ja Wilson's fault. This is just Time Magazine doing what Time Magazine does.
When it often feels like no one recognizes the effort. However, Time Magazine decided to highlight A'ja Wilson as the face of their Women of the Year, overlooking the undeniable impact Caitlin Clark has had on the sport. A'ja's journey is one of hard work and dedication, but Caitlin's influence? It's been nothing short of game-changing. The head-scratching nominees.
I can do better situation. And this is another case of that type of scenario because Time Magazine, let's pull it up right now. Now, I was stunned when I seen this, guy. I was definitely stunned when I seen this. As you guys can see here, Time Magazine has named A'ja Wilson, and which Jordan Childs definitely deserved it.
Hard to believe Time Magazine skipped over Caitlin Clark entirely. She's captured the attention of NBA stars, celebrities, and TV networks. Her games are being broadcasted with more attention than ever before. When was the last time a college athlete had this much of an impact? And yet, Time Magazine's cover stars are A'ja Wilson and Jordan Childs, both amazing athletes, but this feels like a classic case of anything you can do, I can do better. Let's talk about this. Caitlin Clark's visibility and influence are so far-reaching, it's impossible to ignore. She's doing for women's basketball what the sport has desperately needed, mainstream attention. And
oh, man. A'ja. So you got your Time Woman of the Year cover. You're one of the 10 women, I guess, in sports that they're saying are Women of the Year. So you get your cover. Today is your day. What a day to celebrate.
For Women of the Year? This feels like a massive oversight, and frankly, a slight to the game-changing impact Clark has made. Final thoughts. Look, this isn't A'ja Wilson's fault. She's earned every bit of recognition she's gotten. But Time Magazine's decision to place her on the cover instead of Caitlin Clark is beyond confusing. Caitlin Clark is a force, and not even mentioning her in such a prestigious context is a glaring omission. So, while the spotlight is on A'ja Wilson and Jordan Childs, both deserving in their own right, it's hard not to question what Time Magazine was thinking when they decided to leave Caitlin Clark out in the cold. Caitlin Clark, the biggest snub of the year. Alright folks, Buckle up because this one's a doozy. Time magazine just dropped its Women of the Year list, and if you thought Caitlin Clark's historic rise was going to get the recognition it deserves, you'd be wrong. Not only did Caitlin Clark have a stellar year, a record-breaking, headline-grabbing, sell-out arenas kind of year, but somehow, Time magazine decided to overlook her completely. That's right, the same Caitlin Clark who brought NBA-level ratings to women
tells us everything we need to know about Times Magazine.
What are we talking about, man? All you gotta do is be a teammate of Caitlin Clark, or have a rivalry with Caitlin Clark, or have an incident dust up with Caitlin Clark, or say something slick about Caitlin.
NBA into the mainstream gets nothing. Instead, they gave the cover to A'ja Wilson. Now, A'ja's a great player, no doubt. But the truth is, she's been in the league for a while, and outside of hardcore WNBA fans, nobody's really been talking about her like that until now. Caitlin Clark, on the other hand, she's been breaking records left and right, putting up numbers that no one thought were possible, and getting people from all walks of life to care about women's basketball. What Caitlin Clark did. Caitlin Clark changed the game this year. She's sold out arenas, she's pulled in NBA-level ratings, and she has literally made people say, "I have to watch this game." Her impact goes beyond the court. We're talking $36 million in economic activity for the city of Indianapolis alone, and she accounted for 27% of the entire WNBA's economic impact last season. And let's not forget the adversity she faced. Players taking cheap shots at her, analysts doubting her abilities, and media members throwing shade. All the while, Clark kept her head down and kept breaking records and making history. Time magazine's huge miss. But somehow, Time magazine decided that A'ja Wilson was the face of their Women of the Year. The same
responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis, and that she is responsible for 27% of the entire WNBA's economic activity for this past season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television. One player in a big league responsible for 27% of the economic impact and economic activity for the WNBA. One person.
NBA for years, but still doesn't have the mainstream impact of Caitlin Clark. Don't get me wrong, A'ja's a talented player, but what Caitlin did for the sport is on another level. She made people care about the WNBA in ways no one else has, and she did it while facing more hate and obstacles than almost any rookie in history. Let's call it what it is. Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA is generational. Her rise has been astronomical, and the fact that she wasn't even nominated for Women of the Year tells you everything you need to know about how out of touch Time magazine really is. What A'ja Wilson really did. So what did A'ja Wilson do that was so groundbreaking? She won a championship. That's cool, but it's not on the same level as Caitlin Clark making the WNBA relevant to mainstream sports fans. Giving A'ja Wilson Woman of the Year is like giving MVP to a role player while the superstar is carrying the team. Caitlin Clark is that superstar. Caitlin Clark's also been shattering records, like becoming the fastest player in WNBA history to hit 200 points, 75 rebounds, and 75 assists, doing so in just 15 games, beating a 25-year-old record. This is a generational talent we're talking about. Final thoughts. So,
became the fastest player in WNBA history to record 200 or more points, 75 or more rebounds, and 75 or more assists. Doing so in just 15 games, beating Shannon Johnson's record of 16. This is just another way to prove that